Hello and welcome back to This Day in History. It is July 16th, 2024. Not that the year matters, it's about the day. It's a bright, beautiful, blue skies day. It's warm, just perfect weather. Um, let's just get into it, shall we? All right, so birthdays. 1872, Roald Amund. Let's try this again. Roald Amundsen, Roald Amundsen. He's a Norwegian explorer. He was born on this day. In 1907, we have an American actress by the name of Barbara Stanwyck. She was born on this day. Ginger Rogers was another American actress. She was born on this day in 1911. She was an actress and a dancer. This is quite the day for entertainers. Another American actor and writer, Will Ferrell. He was born on this day in 1967. In 1968, we have American football player Barry Sanders. He was born on this day. So happy birthday, Will Ferrell. Happy birthday, Barry Sanders. And that is the birthdays for this day, July 16. So we set the Wayback Clock to the year is 1054. This is kind of interesting. It's it's a classic take, a classic case for tit for tat, right? So the year is 1054. Cardinal Humbert of Silva Candida excommunicates Constantinople Patriarch Michael Cerularius. Okay, and why did he excommunicate Michael Cerularius? Because it was in retaliation for Cerularius excommunicating the cardinal. Oh, I swear you can't make this stuff up. It led to a schism between Rome and Constantinople. And it's probably real close to about the time when the Roman Empire had split into East and West, and the Western Empire was governed by Rome, the Eastern Empire was governed by Constantinople. Yeah. We fast forward to the year 1377. Richard II is installed as King of England a month after his grandfather, Edward III, had passed away. I did forget one birthday here. It's 1862. Ida B. Wells Barnett. She was born in Mississippi. She was a champion and she led the crusade against lynchings. If you don't know what lynchings are, that's where a mob grabs someone that they don't like, or they feel like they have a social justice to execute, and then what they do is they grab them, they find a nice strong tree, and they hang them from that tree by way of lynching. This was a common practice in the South. It was usually born out of racism and bigotry, and a lot of times it was usually racist white folks deciding that they were going to go lynch themselves an African American that they thought was deserving of it. And sometimes it wasn't even just that. It was just wow, let's just go, let's go lynch us a insert expletive here. So oftentimes there was no method to the madness. There it was a cultural thing where they basically dehumanized the African American race, and because they dehumanized them, they didn't see them as humans. Therefore, it was nothing for them to, murder someone, because they didn't see it as murder. I mean, they're just, all I could say is that when this life is done, we all go before the Father for judgment. So, I mean, and they will definitely be judged for their heinous acts. Uh, we go to 1882. Mary Todd Lincoln. If you don't know who Mary Todd Lincoln is, well, I guess this is why you tune into This Day in History, don't you? Mary Todd Lincoln. She is the wife of the 16th U.S. President, Abraham Lincoln. She was the first lady. She was our 16th first lady of the United States. And it is on this day in 1882 that Mary Todd Lincoln would pass away at the age of 63. She was also known to be into a lot of really weird stuff, the occult. After her son died, I think that was Willie Lincoln. She tried to, communicate with the dead and all that, doing seances and stuff. And I think Lincoln entertained it. I don't know how into that stuff he was, but she certainly was, and she was, a little wackadoo. There was actually a point in time where the oldest son, Robert, I think, was the one who's the only living son that he had the opportunity to have her committed, and she might have been committed for a short time, but yeah. At any rate, it's 1882 is when she passes away on this day. In 1935, the world's first parking meters are installed in Oklahoma City, and the idea was that they thought that it would the installation of the device, they sought to ease congestion in the city. So they installed these devices. Little fun fact is that parking meters were designed by Carl C. McGee. In 1941, American baseball player Joe DiMaggio set the Major League Baseball record for the most consecutive games. It was 56, with a hit. So he played 56 games in a row where he actually got a hit at some point at bat. 1951, J.D. Salinger's The Catcher in the Rye, that book was published on this day in 1951. It later went on to be a classic, a hit. I know that I think I had to read that one in high school. I had to read The Grapes of Wrath in high school, and we also watched the movie Grapes of Wrath in high school. And I think Catcher in the Rye, what was the other one? To Kill a Mockingbird was another one that I remember reading in high school. Yeah. Moving right along, 1965, the Mont Blanc tunnel opened. It officially opened, and what it did is that it was a tunnel that linked France to Italy, and at the time it was the world's longest vehicular tunnel, being 7.3 miles long. In 1969, it's on this day in 1969, Apollo 11 launches from the JFK Space Center in Florida. That'd be Cape Canaveral, near Jacksonville. Of course, 4 days later, and we'll get into that on the 20th, because the 20th is a pretty unique and special day. But 4 days later, the U.S. would land on the moon. So, yeah. 10 years later, in 1979, Saddam Hussein becomes the president of Iraq, and his brutal regime would rule for the next 24 years. And if you don't know who Saddam Hussein is, well, he was this dictator, emphasis on the dick. He was a dictator, leader of Iraq. He started a war with Iran. We were sympathetic to Iraq during that 7 years war, because Iran had been overtaken by, and we just talked about the Ayatollah Khomeini yesterday. Ayatollah Khomeini takes takes over Iran in 1979 by deposing the Shah. He takes over, and he's very, very militant, and he's very anti-America. He's very anti-Western culture, and he starts ramping up um, uh, sponsoring terrorism. Well, because it's directed at the United States, Russia decides to throw its lot behind Iraq. So during the Iran-Iraqi war, we threw our lot behind Iran to kind of offset that. Um, Unfortunately, it's stuff like that happening is why we get a lot of the problems we have today. Um, Now we're still at odds with Iran, um, and we ended up being at odds with Iraq. You fast forward to 1991, Saddam Hussein decides that he wants to invade Kuwait, and he's on his way to invade Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia asks the United States to jump in and help out and keep the Iraqis from, further conquest. So that's in 1990. In 1991, we go to war. It's a 6-week war because the Iraqis didn't fight very hard, but we basically kicked them out of Kuwait, and we didn't stop his regime then because the mandate was just to boot them out of Kuwait and establish a no-fly zone in southern Iraq so that they couldn't do this, that, and the other. Long story short, in the span of 12 years, he had 16 UN resolutions drafted against him. And the UN never did a damn thing about it. And which, after 9/11, it kind of sparked off the second round of a war between us and Iraq. And at this time, it was our mandate to remove Saddam Hussein. That war ends with Saddam Hussein being removed from power. He is captured. He's actually tried by his own people, and he is summarily executed for crimes against humanity. Because what was he doing? He was using chemical weapons and bombing the Kurds up to the north, which is like southern Turkey, northern Iraq, simply because he felt he could. They were a lesser race as far as he was concerned, so he felt like he was empowered to just do whatever the hell he wanted. So we took him out. We removed him from power, and we did, it was a good thing. But, he had a brutal regime for 24 years until he was finally removed from office, and that regime started in 1979 when he became president. 20 years later, in 1999, this one is a little hits me close to home, being a Kennedy, and I remember this day. I was sitting in front of my computer. I got a private message from someone on. I used to chat on IRC, or if you're on Windows, MIRC. This guy didn't like me, and he knew that I was a Kennedy because I would boldly declare my relations to the Kennedys. And he's like, haha, another one down, you're next. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he sent me a link. This is very early on in internet history, where news agencies were actually utilizing the internet. And so he sent me a link to this website, to which it was reported that JFK Jr. was killed in a plane crash. And what happened was that he was flying out nighttime. He was trying to make the wedding. His cousin was getting married in Martha's Vineyard, which is an island chain off of Massachusetts. His cousin was getting married. He was trying to get out there. He had a pilot's license. Just that he wasn't very well versed on the kind of plane that he was using, the instrumentation, especially at nighttime. And unfortunately, they've concluded that he got into a trance, some sort of a trance, and didn't realize that he had kind of done one of these things. And so when he realized that he was in trouble, instead of correcting, he pulled up, which actually made him nosedive into the Atlantic there. So unfortunately, JFK Jr., his wife, and his sister-in-law were all killed in that crash. And it was on this day in 1999 that happened. On this day in 2001, Jacques Rouget of Belgium is chosen to replace Juan Antonio Samaranch as president of the International Olympic Committee. In 2004, Chicago opens Millennium Park, which was designed by architect Frank Gehry, Gehry. 2017, American filmmaker George A. Romero dies at the age of 77, and you might know him if you've ever watched the movie Night of the Living Dead. That was one of his movies that he directed. The featured event that happened on this day is it's 1945. It's the place is Alamogordo, New Mexico, and yes, if you guessed it, it was the first successful testing of the atom bomb that had happened on this day in 1945. The atom bomb was tested; it was a success, and a month later, they had used their two remaining bombs to bomb Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Japan, to end the war, World War II. So that is this day in history. Thanks for joining in. I'm hungry. I'm going to go eat, and then I have to go to work. All right, so be well, be blessed, take care, and we will do it again tomorrow for July 17th. Yay, it's my ex-wife's birthday. Whatever. All right, take care. Bye.